Welcome back to Touchline Tales. Today we unravel one of the most intriguing chapters in modern football, how Mourinho manipulated a team into a win they didn't desire. Known as one of football's greatest tacticians, Mourinho's arrival at Old Trafford in 2016 was met with high expectations. But what led him to take on such a massive challenge at a club struggling to reclaim its glory days? And how did it all unravel in a whirlwind of tension, trophies, and controversy? Let's dive into this gripping tale. If you're a fan of football drama and strategy, be sure to subscribe, like, and share for more deep dives into the game we love. The natural first question to ask is, why would Mourinho, one of football's greatest tacticians, take the helm of Manchester United in 2016? While United has always been a footballing giant, the club had been in serious decline since the retirement of Sir Alex Ferguson. In just 3 years, they cycled through multiple managers, each failing in spectacular fashion. David Moyes, Ferguson's immediate successor, oversaw a catastrophic fall to 7th place, marking United's worst season in recent memory. Then, club legend Ryan Giggs stepped in as interim manager, but only lasted 4 games before walking away, citing the immense pressure. Next, the club turned to Louis van Gaal, a man with an impressive resume, hoping his experience would bring stability. However, despite spending a staggering £200 million, Van Gaal could only deliver a 4th-place finish and an FA Cup victory. It wasn't enough, and he too was shown the door. Mourinho entered the scene just after his own dismissal from Chelsea, a surprising turn of events given he had guided them to a Premier League title only 7 months prior. His downfall at Chelsea was swift and dramatic. Disputes over transfer budgets, conflicts with staff, and ultimately losing the trust of his players left him just a point above the relegation zone before his sacking. So why did Mourinho take on the challenge of United? His reputation had taken a significant hit, and the allure of rebuilding a club with a storied history was tempting. United had been pursuing him for years, with Sir Alex Ferguson maintaining a close relationship with him. United's promise to focus solely on winning also played into Mourinho's known win-at-any-cost mentality. But Mourinho wasn't walking into a dream job. Across town, his longtime rival Pep Guardiola was about to take charge of Manchester City, inheriting a squad full of world-class players like Aguero, De Bruyne, and David Silva. In contrast, Mourinho's top assets at United included a fading Wayne Rooney, an aging Bastian Schweinsteiger on his way to the MLS, and a solid but overworked David De Gea. The situation was bleak, especially in harm. Anthony Martial, the squad's most prolific scorer, had managed only 17 goals in all competitions. Mourinho quickly called upon an old ally, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, a proven striker from his Inter Milan days. Despite being 34 years old, Zlatan was a free agent and still had the hunger to succeed, having just finished a season with 50 goals and 19 assists in 51 matches. He was seen as a short-term fix, but an invaluable one. Defensively, things were just as dire. Players like Darmian, Smalling, and Valencia weren't up to the standard required for a team aspiring to return to greatness. Promising talents like Phil Jones and Luke Shaw were plagued with injuries, and Mourinho's efforts to sign top-tier defenders like Mats Hummels and Raphael Varane were thwarted by the club's notorious reluctance to spend. In the end, he had to settle for Eric Bailly, a good player, but not enough to shore up the backline entirely. In midfield, Mourinho faced a worn-out core consisting of Schweinsteiger, Juan Mata, Michael Carrick, and Marouane Fellaini. To inject fresh energy, he made a few key signings. First was Henrik Mkhitaryan, acquired for £26 million from Borussia Dortmund, where he had been the Bundesliga's top assist provider. But the marquee signing was undoubtedly Paul Pogba, bought back from Juventus for a record-breaking £96 million. A particularly ironic transfer given that United had let him leave for free just 4 years prior. Interestingly, sources suggest Mourinho had originally preferred to sign N'Golo Kanté, but the club hierarchy pushed for Pogba instead. While many assumed Manchester United was trying to rectify their mistake with the massive signing of Paul Pogba, it felt more like they were doubling down on it. The drama that surrounded the transfer was indescribable. What stood out to me the most during that transfer window, however, was Mourinho's uncharacteristic reluctance to clean house. Known for his ruthless approach to clearing out deadwood upon arrival, Mourinho only sold 3 noteworthy players. It always made me wonder if he had been constrained by forces outside of his control. Fast forward to the start of the season, and right from the first official match, Mourinho snagged his first trophy, beating Leicester City to claim the Community Shield, courtesy of a winning goal from Zlatan Ibrahimovic. However, in the Premier League, things quickly spiraled. By the 4th match, he had already been outclassed by Guardiola's Manchester City, and by the 8th, he was suspended for criticizing referees. To add to his woes, injuries piled up with Luke Shaw, Phil Jones, Eric Bailly, Antonio Valencia, and Henrik Mkhitaryan all sidelined. Mourinho's frustration boiled over as he found himself banished to the stands for protesting too aggressively. In classic Mourinho fashion, he dropped a memorable line: "We may not have A, B, or C, but we have L, M, and N." Although United were already 8 points adrift from the top of the table, the cup competitions told a different story. Mourinho knocked Guardiola's City out of the League Cup and went on to beat West Ham, Hull City, and Southampton, securing his 2nd trophy of the season by mid-February, making it United's most successful post-Ferguson campaign. But there was more to come. The Europa League journey had been underwhelming. United suffered defeats to Fenerbahce and Feyenoord and barely made it out of the group stages. In the knockout rounds, they struggled, drawing the first legs against Rostov and Anderlecht, and needing extra time to scrape past the Belgian side. After a slightly more convincing win over Celta Vigo, United found themselves in the final. Their opponents, Ajax, boasted a young team featuring future stars like Matthijs de Ligt, Frenkie de Jong, and Hakim Ziyech, players who would take them to the brink of a Champions League final just 2 years later. Despite Ajax's talented squad, it was United who seized the initiative in classic Mourinho fashion. Against the flow of play, Pogba scored the opening goal, and shortly after the break, Mkhitaryan added a second. Ajax dominated possession, controlling 72% of the ball and firing 11 shots in 40 minutes. But Mourinho's men held firm, keeping a clean sheet. United had their first European trophy in 9 years, capping off a season where Mourinho had lifted 3 trophies, more than Moyes and Van Gaal combined in their tenures. Yet, even with the silverware, Mourinho's relationship with the media and fans soured. His pragmatic, defensive style of play drew heavy criticism. To them, Mourinho was a villain for playing boring football. But as Mourinho famously said, "There are many poets in football, but poets don't win much." However, as the following season would show, even Mourinho's winning ways would soon hit a wall. The second season was meant to be about the league. Mourinho had built a reputation for winning the title in his second year at every club he had managed. But after finishing 6th in his debut season, the task seemed insurmountable, and the board wasn't helping matters. Having missed out on signing top defensive targets like Hummels and Varane the previous year, United made a puzzling choice by bringing in Victor Lindelof from Benfica. Mourinho was notably lukewarm about the signing, openly admitting that the decision came from within the club. With Rooney departing and Zlatan sidelined with injuries, Mourinho aimed to make a statement by signing a marquee forward. He went after Neymar but was outbid by PSG in dramatic fashion. Then, he came close to landing Antoine Griezmann, only for a transfer ban on Atletico Madrid to halt negotiations. In the end, United settled for Romelu Lukaku, signing him for £75 million from Everton. Lukaku was a young striker, familiar with Mourinho from their Chelsea days, and had almost won the Golden Boot while at Everton, so it made sense. But compared to Neymar or Griezmann, it felt like a consolation prize. The signing of Nemanja Matic from Chelsea was another solid move, given Mourinho's trust in the player throughout his career. However, in another surprising twist, Mourinho only sanctioned the sale of one notable player, Adnan Januzaj. This inactivity in the transfer market was strange for a manager known for making sweeping changes upon arrival. Something was clearly amiss, and many eyes turned towards the board and ownership. Still, the new season started with a bang. United went unbeaten in their first 12 matches, scoring 4 or more goals in half of those games. Yet, despite the hot start, they were still trailing Manchester City by 2 points. To make matters worse, they suffered a shock defeat at the hands of Huddersfield Town, of all teams. Following a tough defeat against Chelsea just 2 weeks later, things seemed to take a familiar turn for Mourinho's side. Despite being hit with a string of injuries, they managed to pull together a solid run of 13 games, with only a loss to Manchester City blemishing their record. Still, as the season wore on, City had surged 12 points clear, almost unbeaten. Despite only 3 losses in their first 24 games, Mourinho faced the most criticism, prompting him to voice his frustration, famously remarking about City's financial power. They buy fullbacks for the price of strikers, and frankly, he had a point. Comparing the starting 11s of both teams when they faced each other, City had superior players in nearly every position, save for Ederson and Delph. So, when January rolled around, Mourinho saw an opportunity to salvage the season. Zlatan Ibrahimovic left for LA Galaxy, and Arsenal expressed interest in Henrik Mkhitaryan. At the same time, Alexis Sanchez, who had delivered 48 goal contributions in 4,200 minutes just 6 months prior, was undervalued due to his desire to leave Arsenal. In a convenient turn of events, United and Arsenal swapped players. However, the downside was that Sanchez became the highest-paid player in the league, earning an eye-watering £500,000 a week. If Sanchez had simply returned to his previous form, this would have been a smart deal. But instead, he scored just 5 goals over the next 2 years, making each goal cost United roughly £10 million. It quickly became one of the most infamous transfers in Premier League history. Adding to the chaos, Sanchez didn't fit Mourinho's style of play, and fans questioned if Mourinho had even approved the signing, with rumors suggesting he had preferred Ivan Perisic. The arrival of Sanchez only brought more uncertainty, stalling Anthony Martial's development, and things began to unravel. The tipping point came when Mourinho publicly criticized Paul Pogba during a match against Tottenham, subbing him off and engaging in a heated argument on the sidelines. The incident added fuel to the fire, with club legends like Paul Scholes further criticizing Pogba, sparking a dip in team morale. This spiral led to 4 more losses in the final 13 matches of the season, leaving United in second place, a staggering 19 points behind City. But to be fair, City had completed a record-breaking campaign with 100 points. There was no stopping them that season. In the context of such formidable competition, Mourinho had still managed to guide United to 81 points, the same total that had won the league just 2 seasons prior and 11 points more than any other manager post-Ferguson. In fact, Mourinho had accumulated more points per game than Sir Alex Ferguson had in 6 of his 13 title-winning seasons during the Premier League era. As Mourinho himself later remarked, "Finishing second with Man United was one of the biggest achievements of my career. People think I'm crazy, but they don't know what went on behind the scenes." Yet, despite that achievement, the critics kept piling on. An early exit from the Champions League and a loss to Chelsea in the FA Cup final meant Mourinho no longer had the one thing that shielded him from scrutiny: silverware. And that's when everything began to fall apart. First, Rui Faria, Mourinho's assistant manager for 15 years, decided he'd had enough and left the club. Faria had long been credited with keeping tensions in check behind the scenes, especially during Mourinho's many outbursts. Without him, the locker room became a powder keg. Pogba's World Cup victory that summer seemed to add more tension, with Mourinho offering a backhanded compliment, saying, "The World Cup is perfect for him, just a month without distractions." Pogba's dissatisfaction became increasingly public, culminating in his post-match comment after the season opener, "You can't give your best when you're not happy," which Mourinho took as a direct jab at him. This led to Mourinho publicly challenging Pogba to request a transfer if he was so unhappy at the club. As the drama unfolded, Mourinho's frustrations boiled over in a now infamous press conference, where he stood up and demanded respect, reminding everyone that he had won 3 Premier League titles, more than all the other managers in the league combined. But the tension didn't stop there. After a frustrating draw with Wolves, Pogba openly criticized Mourinho's tactics, saying, "Great teams need to attack, attack, and attack." Mourinho retaliated by stripping Pogba of the captaincy, further escalating the tension. The situation reached a boiling point when Mourinho and Pogba were caught on camera in a heated argument during a training session. Then came a series of bizarre incidents. Mourinho swore on camera after a win against Newcastle, and in a separate incident, chased Chelsea's assistant coach down the tunnel after a match. The breaking point came when Mourinho labeled Pogba a virus in front of the entire squad, accusing him of infecting the team with negativity, saying, "You pass your virus to the others. You don't respect the players, the supporters, or the club." This public humiliation caused Pogba's agent, Mino Raiola, to step in, demanding an extra £200,000 a week for Pogba to stay at the club and threatening that if Pogba's demands weren't met, Romelu Lukaku, another client of Raiola, would also leave. Faced with mounting internal strife and the relentless pressure from the media and fans, the United board made their decision. Mourinho was sacked, and on the day of his departure, Pogba posted a now-deleted photo on Instagram that many interpreted as mocking Mourinho. As the dust settled, many couldn't help but ask, was this not the same story that had played out at Chelsea? As the dust settled on Mourinho's tumultuous time at Manchester United, one thing remained clear: his tenure was anything but ordinary. From the highs of Europa League triumphs to the lows of locker room conflicts, Mourinho's legacy at Old Trafford will always be one of both success and controversy. What do you think? Was his time at United a triumph against the odds, or a story of potential unfulfilled? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey into the world of football's most captivating figures, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories from Touchline Tales. Until next time, keep the passion alive.